You have an automatic screen coater.
Yes. We'll probably dry in a half hour or so, but we still got a hot box that if we need something done faster, we can go into there. This is pretty much all our screens that we have ready to go to get burned and out to the press.
So the drying room, so these are all screens that have been cleaned and now are drying before they are actually coated.
Correct.
A second time.
Yep.
Okay, and you organize them by the different mesh counts?
Correct.
And I see everything in here is essentially stretch and glued. Do you use any roller frames?
We did use roller frames a few years ago, especially when we were doing a lot of sim process in-house. But we keep an eye on the newtons on the screens, and we just use these. They're a lot easier to use, and we have a good partner that we buy screens from all the time.
And then you just send, once the screen's done, you send them the frame, do they re-stretch it? And,
yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one thing I did when I was first starting, and I'm not putting it down completely, but wood screens can be a nightmare to work with. I mean, you've been in this industry for 40 years.
Yeah.
Would you suggest always spending the money on an aluminum versus a wood, even if you're a small startup?
Yeah, I mean, years ago, wood was a lot cheaper, but I don't know, wood might be even more now. I mean, it's metal frames there's not much cost savings going to wood, and they're a lot more stable.
And like Pete said right there, the newtons, you have to have great tension. If you want to have good registration and just a really nice print, you got to take care of your screens, and having the technology to properly wash them out. Because I know, I mean, you may have hired somebody at one point and they just go at that mesh too much, or they throw a chemical and they leave it in there, it locks it up. I mean, it could be a nightmare, and having the operation just makes everything easier.
Easier. And we used to stretch our own metal frames too, but it was a lot easier, and we got a consistent frame by jobbing that out. That was one of the things we decided to send out.
Anybody who's ever tried to stretch a screen before, it is not fun. That glue isn't fun. It's not fun getting all the residue off of it. Try to find yourself a good partner to send your screens to, let them re-stretch it, and go from there. All right, Pete, so we dry the screens and then we
coat them.
Coat them. So, you have an automatic screen coater.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm used to doing the classic two hands,
yeah.
Flip it around, and so this automatic coater, how does this exactly work? I mean,
you basically put the emulsion in the front and back, and then you plop the screen in, and it coats it, and while it's coating, you're getting the next one ready, and they can coat a bunch of them fairly quickly. So that's how, like, this pre-press area with two people, you know, he's doing reclaim, and then he's doing coating, and then he gets them in the hot room. The other guy's grabbing them out of the hot room, exposing them, and then washing them out. So that they're doing more than one job.
Are you typically doing a 1-in-1 on both sides?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So you're doing a 1-in-1, and like, how long have you had this piece of equipment versus how many years did you guys manually coat?
We've had this since before we moved in this facility, so probably about 7 years. So before we got the Ecotex and the EcoRinse, we actually had this.
Awesome.
And consistent screens, because it gives the same
exact
coat compared to doing it by hand. You know, the beginning of the morning, you're all gung-ho. The end of the day, you're going a little bit slower, and you're probably putting on a lot more emulsion. This is the same way every time.
Yeah, I never thought about actually coating all day, and that's again, most shops aren't having to coat that many screens, and that's definitely the consistency. And then when you get to exposure, I bet it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
And what type of emulsion are you using? Are you using a diazo mix? Is it?
We're using diazo, and we've bounced around between different ones, because most of the shop will run in plastisol on, but when we get into the hybrid digital squeegee, it's water-based screens that we need.
So yeah, definitely a different emulsion, because it'll break down with the water.
Yeah.
Really cool. I'm kind of jealous I don't have an automatic screen coater.
Yeah.
So we coat the screens, then they got to dry. So these look like they were recently coated. How long does it take roughly to have them dry in here?
So each of these rooms have different atmospheres. So like the first couple rooms are, got heat. This has got a lot of heat, and so if they're leaving them out right here, these will probably, because the room's a lot warmer, will probably dry in a half hour or so. But we still got a hot box that if we need something done faster, we could go into there. So when we're doing a lot of screens a day, we'll use a combination of in there and out here to get them done faster.
Kind of cool. I mean, it's like a whole closet, so you can just roll that rack right in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really cool. Well, after we coat the screens, we then take them into what? A storage room?
Storage, yeah. So all the other rooms were taking humidity out of the atmosphere. This room we put in humidity in, because if you get it too dry, you're going to have problems with your screen. But this is pretty much all our screens that we have ready to go to get burned and out to the press.
So I see, we start at what? Oh, wow, you have 40 and 60 and 80. So what, glitter, metallic,
exactly.
Those specialty types. Then you get into your classic 110, 156. This is where I live when I print. These mesh counts. And for those who don't understand, the mesh is really what? How many holes are in a square inch? The more holes there are, the more detail you're able to hold. And I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but we're in a light-sensitive room like we were the last one. I mean, we're in yellow lighting. We don't want to pre-expose these screens. You have any UV coming in, it's not going to burn very well.
No.
If it will. So you have a lot of different mesh counts for different situations. Again, that 40, 60, 80, your specialty inks, they're a thicker ink. You really need them to be coming through. Your white inks typically have a lot more pigment. They need a lower mesh count. But then, you go to 156, 180, 196, 200, 230, 305. If you're burning a 305, this is typically for like spot process or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And what color are these screens? Are they all white?
They should be orange or yellow.
That's what I'm used to.
With the yellow light, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it is very hard to tell. And how many screens do we have coated in here?
We should have somewhere around 300 or 400. We have about 800 to 1,000 screens at any one time, depending on what's going out to get restretched. But you want to always have maybe 3 days worth of screens on hand to turn them around.
So 3 days worth of screens, meaning you're going through around 100 screens a day?
Or more than that, probably about double that, yeah. And it used to be more when we were a Zim process shop. Every job was 8 to 12 colors, and we were doing a lot of Sim process with digital squeegee. We're using 3 or 4 screens, so our screen usage went down a lot since all our high detail work is digital squeegee now.
Wow, that's a lot of screens. And how quickly do you try to use the screens in this room? Because I've coated a screen, and I might coat like a 60, thinking, you know what, I'm going to get a glitter job in the next week or so. Then I don't get that job, and like 2 weeks later, and then it's like, this is getting harder to wash out once I expose it. So how quickly, what's your maximum length of time sitting in this room?
Most of the screens, except for the 40s and the 60s and the 80s that we're using for the glitter jobs, are getting turned all the time. And these guys keep a good eye on what they're using more of, so we'll adjust what we're ordering when we have them restretched. But it's the same thing. We don't do a lot of glitter or shimmers and stuff like that, so sometimes we actually, when we do get the job, we have to look at the screen and the date it was made and just reclaim it and burn and recoat it again.
And I see we got a
humidifier
stat, 62% humidity. One thing that a lot of people, when they're getting started, I'll tell you, especially me, and even with like DTG, you have to respect Mother Nature.
Oh yeah.
I mean, humidity is huge. So having the right environment is key to success.
Yep.
Do you agree?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, with the DTG and the DTF, we had to build its own room to control the humidity and the temperature in. And then when we brought in our new Polaris DTG, we already had the full shop air conditioned, but we didn't have the correct humidity. So we M&R built humidifiers on there, but we still have to get extra humidity in that environment.
Well, once you start throwing AC in the room or heat, I mean, you're sucking out that humidity. And I've been in shops where they have misters to a degree. I mean, and that gets dangerous, having misting and so forth. So.
Yeah, we looked at the misters and stuff, and when I seen them at places that had them, there was condensation on the floor.
Exactly.
So, we'll be running the DTG when we get out there, but you'll see that the humidifiers come up and you don't get a lot of the water all over the place.
Cool.
So.
All right, so really cool screen room. All these screens are coated. Next step, we gotta burn them. We have to expose them. And Pete, you've got two different ways to expose a screen. You've got the old school exposure unit. This is how I expose my screens. Versus this is a computer to screen machine. And explain to us why this has kind of changed your business, especially when you're doing all that process printing and so forth.
Well, you get really fine detail with the eye image, and also you save a lot of money because we're not printing film here. So the guy that's working in the screen room or washing out screens, he's able to put a screen in, press a button, and come back and it's done. But the detail's really good. Pretty much everything with our plastisol screens will go through here. Image will get printed on the screen. It'll get exposed when it goes into the back. It'll come out, get washed out. But when we do our water-based screens, we're still using that exposure unit to post-expose to make the screen a little bit harder, because the water-based inks will break down the screen a little bit faster. So even though I thought I was going to sell that at first, we ended up holding on to it as a backup in case this ever went down. But now we find out that we need it to post-expose our water-based screens.
Never bad to have a backup.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, the computer to screen, put the screen on, goes in, prints directly onto the screen, and then instead of using a film positive, because a film positive, I mean, they're not hard to make, but especially when it comes to alignment. I mean, that's the key here as well, right? I mean, the detail and the alignment to be able to go from here to that press.
With the Tri-Lock, with the M&R's Tri-Lock, we have that. And the cost, I mean, the film is at least a couple bucks per thing, plus you have somebody, artist waiting for that film to always come out, and so there's just a lot of time with it, where here you get a better product and it just goes right to screen, and you're not saving all those positives.
How long ago did this technology come out? Because I've seen these machines go way down in price compared to once they...
I want to say it's been around for at least 10 years. We've had this for probably 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I would make my life easier when I've got a 5-color job to line up.
And I know there's other eye images and different ways of doing it that are coming on board that people are using that are pretty cool.
Cool. All right, so we make our stencil, essentially our screen, and then we wash it out, which, is this an auto washout or is oh wow.
Yeah, this is Echo Rinse. So we could put up to 4 screens in here, and there's different formulas for different mesh counts that'll we'll spray a fine mist, basically expose the screen, and then let it sit for a couple seconds, and then it'll come and wash it out and rinse it, and then we actually just throw it in the hot box to dry faster. And then from here they go out and get ready for the next day's production.
Well, and actually something you just mentioned from there, anybody who's ever had to expose a screen knows that all the variables that go into it, I mean, the screen mesh, how much emulsion was put on, how long that emulsion has been on the screen, the computer screen makes that even easier, and then this, just with the automatic, I have to imagine, just makes it pretty turnkey to expose the screen.
And consistent. It's consistent every screen, and then when you're doing fine detail, either with a lot of halftones, you're using the same formula, so the screen's going to turn out the same way. You're not relying on the amount of emulsion or how it was exposed, and then how they're spraying it with a power washer.
You get too close with the power washer, you start losing that detail. Very cool. I mean, again, it's all about consistency. When you're doing same-day turnaround, mistakes are not your friend at all. I mean, you have to be precise with everything.